everyone, welcome to Coptic Topic. Today we're doing the dating episode with the guys. Today we have Andrew, Yusuf, Abuna Musa, and Peter.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Nice to meet
Thank
y'all.
you for having us.
I'm back.
Thank you, Diana, for the introduction. Again, this episode is about dating. Before we start, we just want to preface that this is all opinions.
All right. I want to open up this episode by asking Buna Musa a very important question. Since we're all here, very young, and we really want to get to know about this topic, what do you think the appropriate age to start dating is as a Coptic Orthodox Christian?
That's a good question. I don't think there's a specific age because I know people who got married at a very, very young age, and then people got married at a very old age, and some were successful, some were not. So to put it into just one age doesn't really, it's not going to help you. My opinion, it's not about your age, it's about your level of maturity. Yeah. But in general, if you had to pick an age, usually people are ready to be married around when they're done with their responsibilities in life, like school and things like this. And they have an established career, which you probably heard this answer before, but that's kind of why that answer is the case.
Do you think it's also a matter of their familiarity with God and being able to build that connection with God before they can start building a connection with someone else?
Yeah, I was going to ask how do you know if you're ready?
Yeah, your relationship with God is not just related to it, it's everything about it. The whole point of dating is to end in what? What's the goal?
Marriage.
It's supposed to be marriage, right? It's supposed to be. I hope that's not the first time you guys heard that. The goal of dating is marriage. And so if that's the case, where do you get
Church.
In the church. So it's a sacrament in our church, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, that means God has a part to play in this whole thing. So your relationship with God is supposed to be strengthened through the relationship. But you kind of have to have a good relationship with God before you get into a relationship, because a relationship with someone is helping them in their relationship with God too. But if you can't help yourself, how are you going to help other people, right?
Yeah.
This leads me to my question then, moving on from that, is you talk about dating into marriage, but then how long is the dating phase, but how would you define dating? Because I've heard from my parents when I was growing up, oh, we don't date, we go straight from dating to marriage. And it's they make it seem like it's such a short phase, in a month or something.
Where's the ring?
Yeah, exactly. So my question is what would be the definition for us as Coptic Orthodox? What is the definition for dating going into that?
Can I add on to that? Yeah. I was watching something the other day, and it described in the Coptic Orthodox Church the word courting along with dating. What is that?
So in America, the word dating is thrown around so much that when you hear someone's dating, it's basically their boyfriend and girlfriend, and that's it. There's no talk of marriage. There's no talk of God. It's just they're dating, right? That's their other person. And usually those sort of relationships don't really end well. They don't really lead to a lot of fruitful things. Some sin gets involved usually. And so our parents basically looked at the word dating and saw the actions of dating, and they were like, nah, we're not going to touch that. We don't date, right? But by the basic definition of what dating is it is courting. Courting is essentially we are coming into this relationship together with a goal, and that goal being Christ, right? And that you go through marriage to get there. But that's ultimately the goal. And so when you court someone, you're kind of figuring out, do we have the same values? Do we have the same goals? Are we both moving at the same pace to get to that goal? But yeah, so it's just terminology, if that makes sense.
To piggyback off what you're saying, how we're going on the same pace, I saw this ideology online where dating as Christians or being married as Christians refers to two cows and a yoke. Do you guys know what a yoke is? It's that wooden thing that goes around the cow's neck, and they both go at the same speed. Mm-hmm. So if one overtakes the other, it's hurting the other person by leaving them behind. And if one is trying to pull away from the other, it will hurt the other one.
Is that what the term unequally yoked comes from?
Yeah. It's a verse from 2 Corinthians.
Yeah.
And
thought of it
it's also it refers to back to Genesis 2:18, how a man should leave his father and his mother and become one flesh with the woman he is marrying.
Yeah, the one flesh is the one that I'm aware of, because that's just said so many times throughout, is that the husband and wife become one flesh, one body, and that makes sense. And then Yeah,
Yeah.
it adds more up. But I never
That's
thought
that's
of
the
that.
right way to understand it. When we say the two become one flesh, we're saying that whatever you do will now affect the other person, even if like it's something so simple and you feel like it's not going to affect them. Like I'll give you an example. This is like an actual example that you'll hear a lot. So let's say you have a husband and a wife. Okay, the husband goes and talks to someone, and this person just like really disrespects them or something, and they get upset, and now they're in a bad mood. Them being in a bad mood immediately affects their wife, because what ends up happening, they'll come home and they're in a bad mood, and then the wife will like say something that like uh, it's a bit sensitive
They
and
take
gets
it
him
out on
upset,
her.
and then now it's like he can
It's an argument.
he's not supposed to, right? And vice versa, the same thing can also happen with the wife. But that's what it really means when you are one flesh. It means whatever she does, you're gonna get affected. Whatever you do, she will get affected.
Can you give any advice on how to move in that same harmony, in that same one flesh?
It requires you to exit out of yourself, right? So if I say I love my wife, that means I'm gonna put her before myself,
Yes.
right? That's really what love is for us as Christians. It means I'm choosing something over myself or someone over myself. So to go at the same like in the same direction and to go at the same pace, I have to be aware of where she is in her life and her spiritual like life and in general. I have to know where she's at. If she's in a bad mood, I can't sit here and be like the happiest mood on planet Earth and act
Yeah.
like I'm just gonna disrespect her at that point. Unless she needs me to be in a good mood, then I'll do that. But it's all about what does she need, not what I want, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask a question that's like kind of related. What do y'all think is okay to agree on in a relationship, and what's okay to not agree on in a relationship?
I feel like situations where the other person is like committing something ungodly or something that is not showing the way of the church. I feel like that's something you should call them out on and be like, hey, we're like you're not doing the will of God by doing this. That's something you should disagree on. Something you agree on is like, for example, how you want to raise your family. What do you want your future to look like with that person? Or like if you want your kids to go to church every Sunday, so like and like nurture them in the church. Those are things to agree on.
I think going off that too, as Abuna mentioned, like you're one body, you're supposed to go at the same pace. And I think if somebody is not on like the same page or is doing something that you don't agree on, you don't just like disagree with them. I think like Yusuf said, you have to like, I think personally you would like work on it, call them out to make sure that they like, I guess, catch up going off that metaphor and make sure that you're still moving at the same pace or slow down depending on what the situation is. So that way you're still moving as one body.
What if y'all like are struggling to agree? What do you think
Go to Abuna.
at that point?
Go to a
Go to Abuna. Abuna gives great advice.
Ask him.
No, I mean at the end of the day, when a couple disagrees with each other, and like there is no clear right or wrong, it basically becomes a competition at that point to who can be humble first. Does that make sense? Like who can be like, no, you're gonna win. I want you to win this. I want your opinion first. It becomes like a race, like who's gonna get there first, and that's what it should be. Because if you love that person, you're really going to consider their opinion first before your own opinion. And if it's not a matter of like right and wrong, and it's just like where do you want to eat tonight? Then instead of making it a fight, you should deny yourself and take that as a chance to do that for the sake of loving the other person.
What do you think about that sometimes ending the relationship? Like one small argument or like a big disagreement?
Are you talking like post marriage or like before marriage?
No, before marriage.
Like while dating?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on how. So I agree with you guys when you're saying call them out, because how a person responds to like their mistakes really tells you a lot about a person. Sometimes, like the expression "talk is cheap."
Yeah.
It really is true. Like you don't know that expression?
No.
So the idea, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory.
What was
We're-
it? Talk is cheap?
Talk
Yeah,
is
talk
cheap.
is cheap and it's
So-
like about your actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can say to my wife, "I love you, I love you, I love you," and then never show love to her. That talk is
Oh.
cheap, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have value to the words, and that's very true. So, let's say you get into an argument with the person that you're in a relationship with, and they respond poorly, or you respond poorly to trying to fix the relationship. Like you guys don't want to reconcile, you don't want to forgive each other, and you just want to win the argument. Yeah, that could be a good reason to be like, all right, maybe we're not compatible with each other because
Yeah.
you're not willing to kind of put others before yourself, right?
Yeah, I feel like it shouldn't be a constant clash of who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah.
And you did this and you did that. You should more likely be willing to forgive as Jesus did, rather than just
Right.
hold grudges over that one person. Well, that one time you did this, but you did this to me that one time, so it's okay. I feel like that's not how it should go, and that's what starts tearing the relationship down.
Going off
Yeah.
that, my question is like, you do get to a disagreement. At what point would you call it off? Because I feel like you won't do it at like
I
the
was
first.
just about to
or-
ask
yeah,
that,
you,
yeah.
you wouldn't go off like the first or second agreement.
Yeah, you shouldn't
Yeah.
do that. That would be kind of a red flag on your part if you just like you leave after one argument.
I don't think arguments are like a big factor in like whether to end it or not. I think you should work it through.
Yeah, I think you should. But if that person is not willing to work it through, that's when it's like, okay, we have to actually discuss why this is happening. But yeah, it really does come down to just really loving each other. And I don't mean that in a cliche, cheesy way, but in like a godly way, right? St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians that the husband and the wife are to be just like Christ and the church. What did Christ do for the church?
Put himself on a cross for the church.
Yeah, he died for her,
Yeah.
right? He literally died for the church.
Good answer.
So the love that a husband should show towards his wife, or a guy should show towards a girl, and when they're dating, you should have this love. By the way, it's not just when you're married. The guy should be willing to die for the girl, and if the girl, that means in the opposite side, what is the girl supposed to be doing for the guy? What does the church do for Christ?
Yeah.
What does she do? How does the church relate to Christ?
I mean, I feel like it would just be worship, praise, stuff like that.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that wife should worship.
That's what I'm. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying either. That's why I'm confused
Right.
where you're going with it.
So, any ideas? How do we like treat Christ in the church besides the worship? Like, why do we worship him?
Because we love him.
Yeah, we love him,
Love.
respect him, and honor him. Right? It's that simple. So that's the husband's role. That's the wife's role. That should be something found in dating, not in marriage only. Does that make sense?
I just have a question following up that, because some people will date outside of our culture, and not everyone is like Christianity is different, of course. So Coptic Orthodox is different. And let's just say you really love the person and you try to bring them closer to our church, like Coptic Orthodox Church. But then after a while, they just keep saying no. And like, when would you know to give up on that person?
That's an immediate red flag, I feel like, because you shouldn't have to jeopardize your spiritual life for someone you're willing to put that much effort and love into, I believe. Because if you're doing that and you're constantly getting pulled away from the faith because you want to follow this person, that's immediate red flag.
I don't think Peter's saying like they're getting pulled away.
Yeah,
The way I
no, that's
interpret
not
the
what I'm
question
saying.
is more like you're trying to bring them into the religion, but they're not agreeing. It's not that you're
Yeah,
pulling
like,
away from your religion.
After
Yeah.
trying your best for a while, when should you give up on that person? Because we are supposed to try to bring people close to our religion, like overall, even if we're not dating them.
Right.
But what if you're trying to bring them in while dating? When should you give up? After trying for how long?
There was a
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There was a term used on something I watched the other day. I think it was, oh my gosh, it was like something. It was like something dating, and it was like you shouldn't date to try to bring someone closer to God. You should date because like you both want to grow. So like if they're not already in like strong in that faith, they're not ready.
Yeah, it's really risky to date somebody outside the faith. I've seen it happen before. It was successful, but it's really risky because basically what ends up happening a lot of the times is you're put in a position to choose between your faith and this person that you've now built like an emotional connection to, and that's a really tough situation to be in, and it's awful. It's not easy to make that decision, and unfortunately, we tend to lean towards what we feel more. And so if we don't have a strong connection with Christ, we're going to be really quick to unplug that and plug it into this person. And that's a road that kind of leads us again away from Christ. So to answer your question though, the line is when you feel like you're being put in that position where you have to choose between one or the other. And at least like if I was in that person's shoes, that would be where I'm like, this is a red flag. I need to reevaluate what's going on here. If that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you guys know like why dating is actually really important? Because I feel like we hear the word dating and we grew up being taught that it was run away from dating. It's evil. It's the Satan, right? But what are the good things of dating?
I mean, it's to get to know the other person.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like me personally, I can't do like straight engagement. Like I have to like,
Yeah, like in Egypt, when like this is how my parents got married, so I find it very weird. I mean, they've been married for like a long time, so I guess it works out.
I guess it works. Yeah.
But they're like go to the house and they barely get to know each other, and then it's like a yes or no, like on the spot, like you want to or not.
Right.
And I don't. Yeah, I don't really like that. That's a little iffy for me. I would kind of like have to know the person more and know their morals and like explore them more, because I can't run into issues later on into the relationship after I'm already interlocked with them. You know.
So I have a sister that she was born and raised in America like me, and she had an arranged marriage just like that, and they're happily married right now. I have another sister who didn't have that arranged marriage, and she's happily married right now. So I don't want you guys to think that that is a terrible way to go.
Yeah.
Like, you should be open minded to it, but also you have a choice if you want to go through that. Obviously, with like respecting your parents' values and things like this. But yeah, the whole point of dating is to get to know the person, to see, are you guys compatible with each other? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, what are some examples of like how you can be compatible with a person?
Say like same interest or same
Hobbies.
hobbies.
Same
Those
values.
things change though. So be careful of like thinking, I'm going to date this person because they like sports. Like, I might wake up one day and kind of be too busy to watch sports. And now my relationship is going to be associated with that, right?
I feel like their connection with God should be something you like look forward to. Like, this person's really close with God. I want to be around this person because the love that they have for God, I want that same love, and I want to be able to portray it the same as they do. So I feel like that's a major driving factor.
Yeah, but like
point.
a lot of values go into it. Like not just religious. Religious is like the first thing, but I feel like also the way that like they want to use their money. Like what if outside the church, they just like to have fun activities and just go out all the time and take nothing serious. I feel that's a very red flag for me personally.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that has to do with religion.
Yeah.
Because like our faith does teach
Yeah.
like discipline and responsibility, things like this. So if they're kind of wasting their money, then that might be a sign that they don't value that part, right? Yeah, there are a lot of things that dating are supposed to provide for you. It's not just this big scary thing that we should run away from, but there is, again, a good timing for it and certain things you should look out for. But again, I don't want to like go into all those details about it unless you guys want to. But any other questions about like that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I know Andrew asked this earlier, but I don't think it was answered. How long should the dating period be, or like when do you know when you're ready to like get married?
I was given advice when I was in a relationship with my wife before we got married, and the advice that I got really helped me a lot. When you get married to a person, you are not just marrying that person; you are marrying into their family, and they're marrying into your family. So that means like part of the way you make a decision on whether we should go ahead and move towards engagement and marriage is I have to get the opinion of the families. It can't just be all on me, right? Whoever is your inner circle of family there that you have to consider like this person's about to join them if you guys get married. So let me see what they think about like the timing of things and things like that. There's no perfect timing. It really just depends on the situation, depends on the age too, and maturity level, things like that. But if I had to give you like a concrete answer, ultimately when you are ready to stop taking from the relationship and ready to give, that's when you should start thinking about being married. Because a lot of the times we say, like, I really love this girl, right? Or I really love this guy. But at the end of the day, it's more like, I love the way this person makes me feel. I love the way that, like, I get benefited from being in a relationship with this person, right? And that's, I don't want to say it's selfish, but it can lead to selfishness.
Okay,
So-
can you expand on like the give and take part? Because you just mentioned that just now. Like when
Yeah.
you said you had enough of taking and you want to give.
Right. It's when you're like, this is my personal opinion, to be honest. When people come to me and say, Abuna, do you think this girl is right for me? Or do you think this guy is right for me? I always say like, stop, red flag. That's the wrong question to ask. You should first ask, am I right for them? Right? Am I ready to be what they need? Right? Because that's a sign that you've already exited out of yourself and you're considering, they're loving them, what they need. And when you do that, if you feel like, yeah, I feel like I could be what they need, then you should ask that next question, which is, well, are they right for you? So when you're ready in that mentality, then that comes with maturity, that comes with experience, that comes with like being guided by those around you. Once you feel like you're ready to give, then that's a sign that like, okay, maybe you can consider being in like a long-term, engagement and then leading to marriage, obviously.
My take on it is that you should be able to tie that connection before you want to tie a connection with someone else. You should be able to tie your connection with God and figure out what it means to be an Orthodox Christian. It means to be like we're a living repentance. We spend too much time putting on like an image of ourselves and of like who we think we are, but we find out who we truly are by getting closer to God. And once we have found ourselves, we go seek out other people, because you can't seek out other people when you don't know yourself. Because as like the man's role in the Bible, he's supposed to lead the woman, correct? How are you going to lead someone if you yourself are confused?
Yeah, it's a good point.
I've actually heard people say that like you should name all the qualities that you want in a woman or a man, like the perfect one that you want to marry, and then you should also look for them in yourself. Because if you're not equal, then you shouldn't look for them.
I have this quote from Saint Isaac the Syrian. It says, "He who knows himself is greater than he who can raise the dead by his prayers." So like that just highlights the importance of like self-identity in Christianity and how that's a major thing before moving on.
Saint Moses the Strong, he has a really famous quote too, where he says, if you want to get to know yourself, go into your cell, like your inner room, shut the door, and then sit in silence. Your cell, the silence, will tell you everything about yourself. Because sometimes we think like being, getting opinions from other people about me will help me know who I am. But no, if you sit with just yourself and God, you're going to start to know him better, and then you'll know yourself better by association.
That reminds me of the retreat that the Raleigh Church just had, where the whole idea of it was know yourself and your identity.
Yeah.
And I think this really extends onto that. And pretty much in that retreat, it was just talking about how you need to take off the fake mask, like Yusuf said, and really figure out who you are without any of the like extra fake stuff that you put on for other people.
The fake ID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that works really well, because once you do figure that out, like Yusuf said, then you can go in and figure out who you're looking for in a partner.
Yeah. One expression that people say about marriages is that your marriage is like looking into a mirror. You guys ever hear that before?
Yeah.
Because when you spend so much time, like very personal, close time with the person where you live with them now, and they're your equal, right? That's your spouse. That's your wife, your husband. What ends up happening is like they start to notice things about you that you didn't even notice in yourself. And it might be good things, it might be bad things. Like both will come up. And so it's kind of like you're learning about who you are by being in that marriage, by being in that relationship. And so sometimes the things that you see you're not going to like, but that's okay. That's kind of the point, right? The point is like you're not going to be done knowing yourself, and then boom, I get married and my reward is marriage for knowing myself. You're going to still discover, you're still going to learn, you're still going to grow towards God in the marriage too. It's not like the reward for doing it all. Makes sense?
To piggyback off what Andrew just said on how we know ourselves, I wrote down some thoughts. I said we can't know ourselves apart from our Creator. That's one thing, but we also can't know our Creator until we stop obsessing so much over ourselves and how we portray ourselves to the world. Because how you portray yourself to the world, that's a fake image. Like when you put that fake image out, that also puts out like you're an image of God. So when you're putting that fake image out, they're also like people are supposed to see God in you. They're supposed to like see that guy and be like, oh my God, like I want to be like, excuse my language, I want to be like that guy because he loves God so much and how he treats others with kindness and what God has taught him. And so that's I believe is a major part of it.
Yeah, you are supposed to be both the husband and the wife, both the boyfriend and the girlfriend are supposed to be role models for each other. Like I know in 1 Corinthians it talks about how the man is like the head and he leads, right? But on a practical level, there are times where like I'm speaking for myself, where I'm looking at my wife and my wife is like leading better than I am. And that encourages me to continue leading.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's like a give and take kind of thing. But if I'm just leading and focusing on like my image, how people speak about me and things like this, where's God in all of that? You guys aren't growing. You guys are staying still then,
Yeah. Speaking of image and stuff, I feel like if you date outside of our like culture and like Coptic orthodoxy, and you find someone that you truly love and that you want to bring to the church, and they agree to come to the church and learn more. One thing we talked about this on the other podcast about people walking away from the church. I feel like if we do bring the other person into the church, there's a lot of people that would just judge like the whole thing, like, oh, he's dating even though he's a deacon. Oh, I don't know why he's bringing other people outside into the church. I feel like judging is a big part of it.
Yeah. And you're talking about like the people in the church. They're
Yeah.
judging because you're dating someone outside of like the faith of
Mhm.
faith or the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should expect that, and that doesn't mean they're right, but that means that those people are exactly where they need to be, right? Like the church is a hospital.
Yeah.
You don't walk into a hospital and see no patients or nobody who's sick. You kind of have to see people who they need help. So if someone's judging you because you're in a relationship with someone outside of the faith, it's okay. You just like accept the judgment and be like, no big deal, right? And just focus on the person that you are with and loving them.
All right, going back to what Abuna was said, how the people, or what Peter said about how the people at church can judge you. I feel like that's a very that's supposed to happen because we have come into the Western world with our traditions, and our parents and our like elders of the church, they hold on tightly to those traditions, and it's not something they're used to seeing. So that's why they're going to question it, and they're going to be like, "Oh, what is he doing? Why is he doing this?" But what they don't understand is that like that's a major part of someone that someone has to experience for their relationship to be successful. I saw this illustration. It was a guy climbing a ladder with knives on it, and I said that's kind of like dating. Like you're climbing like you're constantly trying to go up and progress through the relationship and further it with Christ, but you're gonna face those obstacles and you're gonna get hurt, and that's life. That's gonna happen.
It actually strengthens the relationship.
Yeah.
Right. And like to piggyback off of that, the people like judging or whatever, I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea about those people that are in the church and like staring at the non-Egyptian person in the Coptic church and being like, well, why are they dating this person? Why would they bring them to the church and stuff like that? Remember that the goal is not for the person that is outside the church. If you're a part of the faith and you're interested in being in a relationship with this person that's outside the faith, the goal is not marriage at that point. That's way later down the line. The goal at that moment is how can we bring them Christ, like the salvation that is brought through Christ. You should be worried about their soul, not are we going to plan a wedding later on in our lives once they get baptized. You know what I mean? Because they can they're supposed to be experiencing the church for the church, not because you go to that church. Right?
And I just want to add to that. So I'm not gonna ask a question about it. It's more like I was about to say at what time do you know it's the right time to bring that someone into the church? But I feel like you should wait for them to want to come to seek you out and be like, okay, I'm ready to be with you, and I'm ready to indulge myself into your religion and learn more about it. It shouldn't be that's one problem that most people have, is that like the forcing of the religion kind of like gets it to a point where it won't really work out, because that person might just be doing it just to be in the relationship with the person, rather than doing it for themselves and just to be saved themselves, you know?
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
There's no one to blame for that. Sorry to cut
You're
you
good.
off.
You're good.
There's no one to blame for that, but then other than us.
Yeah.
Like if the person comes in and they want to be in a relationship with you and they just feel like, all right, I just got to go through these classes, get baptized, and then I can be in the relationship with you, then that's my fault for like not, teaching them that, no, you're here for Christ, not me. Like I don't matter. Right.
And
I cut you off.
No, you're good. You got it. Okay. I agree with you on that, but I feel like you do have to plant that seed at some point. Like they're not just gonna, I mean, they could, but it's not really easy for them to just come to you and be like, oh, I want to, but I feel
subtle.
like you have to,
It's a
understand
subtle
that.
planting.
You have to
like-
introduce it.
Like you want to invite them to
I would,
Great Good Friday.
I would say
Welcome to
first,
8 hours of church. Like, no, it's not.
first like express like what it means to be a Christian, like show those ways in front of them, so like, and also plant that seed. But like the way you act around them and the way you behave also mimics
the church.
and Christ. And so that should be a driving factor. That's something that is crucial to have in your relationship, is to be a representation of Christ in there. So that person in the other relationship who may not know Christ could be intrigued, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
They're drawn, like, until they enter into the church for the first time, you are the church.
Yeah.
Like every time that they talk to you, they interact with you, that's the only experience they will ever have of the faith. So it's a responsibility. It's
Yeah.
pretty heavy, but that's important to remember.
I agree that you do have to bring it up, like plant the seed early on about your religion and stuff. So then my question would be, is if you do talk to them about it and they have no interest whatsoever, would you kind of just like keep trying, or would you just move on, or is it just like depending on the situation? Like varies.
I think if you decide to keep trying, I would always ask that person why. Like, make sure you have a reason for it that is more than just I have feelings for them, right? That's not enough because it could, like I said, make you in a position where you have to pick between your relationship and Christ, and you don't want to do that. But if the person's not willing to enter into the church and enter into the faith, you have to ask yourself, well, like, do you want to be with someone that is not planning on being married in the faith with you, right? That means you guys actually don't share the same values.
I feel like seeing it as like chasing a false hope almost. Like
Yeah.
like you're chasing for the satisfaction or like the high that you get from that someone,
Right.
that you want to keep it so bad that you want to keep trying and you don't want to give up on it, but it gets to a point where like this person has denied it in front of you multiple times. This person is not participating or like trying anything to get closer. So at one point you just have to
Cut it off.
tell yourself
Move on.
that's enough. I can't keep hurting myself like
Those two things aren't supposed to be separate.
Yeah.
Like your way of life outside the church is not supposed to be different
yeah.
than the way of life that you have with somebody that you're interested in. Like, it should be the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that if that does happen, where this person's like, I don't want to be a part of your faith, I don't want to be baptized, I just want to be with you. That should be like someone speaking a foreign language to you.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, I don't know how to separate those two things. Like, this is my life. You know, if you don't choose the church, you're not choosing me. Make sense?
I see.
I like to I personally, whenever I'm talking to someone, I'll always tell them like the first thing whenever I meet them, even if they were just friends, I always tell them that, oh, I'm Coptic Orthodox, and I show them the difference between us and like the Western normals. Like I tell them that I'm staying a virgin till marriage. I go to church every Sunday. I also I'm a servant at my church. I always like to volunteer and help. I mean, their reaction once I tell them all that info should just tell me if they would even try in the first place. That's why I like to like tell them that the first day that I meet them.
But also remember, like we said, not to discount what you're saying, but talk is still cheap. So you could tell them, like, I'm a deacon, I'm not going to have sexual relationship for marriage. Love is most important thing in the world, is service and love towards people, love towards God, like X, Y, and Z. You could say all that stuff, but what's really going to pull them in is if they see it more than hearing you speak about it. Like, you guys just open TikTok right now. You'll find a bunch of like videos and just posts of people talking about Christ. But very rarely are you finding people actually being Christ. Like, there's too much talk about him than there is people actually acting and being like that. And if they were being like that, they wouldn't be on TikTok. Like, you wouldn't be filming
Yeah, you
yourself
wouldn't.
being like Christ, because that would be Christ wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know?
I think some people just use social media to try to spread the word of God, but like then again, sometimes it just comes off wrong.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I mean, I feel like social media is a good thing. Like, if it's used correctly,
100%,
like,
yeah.
you can spread the word of Christ through social media like all the time. But when it's like, have y'all ever seen the like, if you love God, like share this to like people? Like that's
I'm sorry. I always skip those. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
like
I be skipping them too. But yeah, I feel like that's not that's not your goal. Your goal
They're
is
just
to
trying to
spread
get
the
shared.
Yeah,
and
I love
some
Christ,
money
but
out
I'm
of
not sharing
But I'm
that
not
video,
sharing.
unfortunately.
it. I'm not helping you get money.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an ultimatum. Like, share this. I feel like old saying this, but like the original form of those things was emails. So people would send you an email with this long prayer, and at the very end of the email, send this to 30 people,
Yeah,
or
the
else
chain mail.
something bad will happen to you.
Yeah.
I feel like
That
younger
goes
people
straight
might
into
like
them.
Like, that's an ultimatum. It's gaslighting.
Yeah, younger,
I feel like
younger people might feel the guilt of that
Yeah.
too, and it's just not okay.
There's a point of guidance where it gets to just a point where like they're just doing it. Yeah, I see like the intention that's coming out. They want to spread the word, but the person that they're trying to spread it to needs to seek the guidance for themselves and like figure it out, kind of like almost figure it out themselves. Yeah, they could seek guidance, but don't push anything on them because like we talked about last episode, pushing things on people makes them farther away from the faith.
Yeah.
Because-
God doesn't push himself onto us.
Yeah.
So why would we push him onto other people?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. Everyone should have the respect of having the choice, but we should make sure that we're at least inviting them. They
Yeah.
choose whether they accept or reject the invitation, but our job is to invite them, always invite them.
This is kind of related, but I saw like someone wrote in a book. It was like, if someone it's like, why does God send people to hell, right? If God were to take those people that don't want a relationship with them into heaven, that heaven would be hell for them because they don't want a relationship. I just thought that was cool.
Yeah. I had a question similar to this, like that someone asked me, but Basically, not to like go into the details of it, the no one's gonna be in hell on accident, right? Like sometimes we think, oh man, I woke up late for liturgy, I'm going to hell. Like, it's not like if you get up to heaven and God is like, you went only to 9 liturgies. If you had one more, I would have let you in, but sorry, you're going. That's not how it works, right? No one's gonna accidentally end up in hell. The people who are there and who will be there are because they're choosing. They're choosing to be there, not because they didn't wake up and pray
Yeah.
and things like this.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
Me and a friend actually discussed this a few days back. I know that anything sexual is a sin, of course, but would kissing count as a sin? Because it could lead to more, but what if it doesn't lead to
That
more?
was a question.
No,
that
no,
someone
honestly, it is a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Everyone, we always forget that not everybody experiences the world the same as you, right? So like, if I give a hug to my wife, right? Like and then I give a hug to somebody else, and that other somebody else is like very sensitive to just like touch, like they're just like really squirmish and like right? But that each person has a different reaction to just a hug. So it's not about right and wrong. Like I want us to stop thinking about, is it right to kiss? Is it a sin to kiss? It's not about that. Is it healthy for you or is it not? And 99.99% of the time, kissing another person will lead to, inappropriate thoughts and wanting more and more and more and going down that road. And then next thing you know, you've been committing things that you never would have guessed you'd be committing, because you put yourself in a position to be vulnerable when you shouldn't have. Doesn't make it's not a sin because kissing is a sin. It's like that's in the Bible. Like, oh, kissing is a sin. It's a sin because you knew it was not gonna be good for you. It's not healthy for you, and you kind of went down that road anyways.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
I kind of wish my parents didn't move me to America.
Why? I love it.
I feel like
I wouldn't have met you.
I feel like the biggest failing of the Western world and Western society is that men and women do not stay together anymore because they have this idea of hookup culture where
Yeah.
it's just you meet somebody at the club, you go home with them, that we're done. And like even like dating, like you said, dating in the first, like the word dating to them, there's no thought of marriage even behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And also a lot of people in the Western world, like people of faith, struggle to find someone to be monogamous to, because if everybody out here is acting like this and like throwing away their morals for just some stupid fun, then where are you going to find a wife? Where are you going to find a husband?
But would you blame that on like the West and not the evolution of the culture throughout time? Because you could look at it like first in the U.S. was the religious people, and they were like Christians.
I mean,
Like
it's
Catholic.
everywhere.
So like,
Like,
well, no,
It's starting to be in Egypt now too.
Yeah.
but-
It-
yeah, so
it's
my
starting
question
everywhere,
also
but
is I don't think it's the West. It's the
I
West's
feel like
fault,
it's
like the U.S.
it's not their
It's-
fault.
It's
like
on
how the
full. It's on
culture-
full volume.
Yeah,
here.
it's the worst
Yeah.
over here.
maxed out.
Like
yeah, but like my point is like I think it evolved fast here and it's
Yeah.
spreading in other places.
that's because
But I get what you're saying.
people over here are like, they're so open minded to new things and they make their new traditions or new like ideas or beliefs that some beliefs and traditional values from the Bible just do not retain to them anymore.
Yeah.
Like as like we're in like say Europe, for example, like you go to like a majority Christian European country, like they have like the highest like marriage rates and the highest like the lowest divorce rates ever because they're all taught from a young age. They're all raised in the church. They're all taught that one person to be monogamous to, you guys have to be conjoined together in Christ, and that's how you find that person. And the whole like bringing on like this new pop culture, this new like culture of going out and finding someone, that's what's really like a ticking virus
Yeah.
in the world. And that's just a thought I had to share.
I think that it also speaks towards the whole like what I get out of this relationship versus what I'm giving. Because if I base my relationship status on how I feel, then like one day, I might not. How everyone says like in a relationship, there's that honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
You're up all night texting each other and emojis and all this stuff like that. It's like very mushy gushy and
Yeah.
cheesy. But like that period does come to an end. But that doesn't mean that you stop loving that person.
Yeah.
But if I look at love as like how I feel towards this person, then the day that comes, you're gonna be like, well, all right, we're out, on to the next one.
Yeah.
And like if I go one too many days not feeling love, then that's where you see the divorce rate happening. Like it's skyrocketing because of that. Because it's all based on what am I getting out of this versus what am I giving, right? And I know I'm like making it sound like a caricature, but most other Christians also, like, not to point the finger, outside of Orthodoxy, people who say they're Christian, they also fall into this problem where they're going and like having divorces as if it's like returning something that you bought from the
Yeah.
store. And I think the reason why that's happening is partly because we have people going into relationships forgetting the goal of marriage. Like, people think marriage is so I can be happy together, and then we just throw in the words "in Christ" at the end to make it seem like it's holy.
Yeah.
But it's not that. Being married is actually where. Let me just explain what we in the Orthodox Church believe marriage is, and then what other churches, Christians, believe marriage is.
Yeah.
Other churches say that being married is where you and this other person are committing yourselves to each other. Is that clear?
Yeah.
You're committing yourselves to each other. The Orthodox Church does not teach that. We teach that you and this other person are committing yourselves to Christ, right? Like, he's the goal, not the other person. But if I follow this first way of doing things, where I'm committing myself to this other person, then the moment that person makes a mistake, I can be like, sweet, this is my way out. Because they didn't follow like their end of the bargain. We had a contract. You're going to commit yourself to me. I was going to commit myself to you. You're not really, who I thought you were. So I'm out, and I'm justified, and I don't have to have a problem. But that's an issue. Like, when you get married to another person in the Orthodox Church, you're with them to the end, right? Like, you don't give up just because things get kind of tough. Once you hit one of those knives on that tree that you're climbing, it's okay. Get bruised, get bloody. It's okay. You're going to heal and move on. You'll actually get stronger. But yeah.
Moving a bit broad from the topic, because I know we're in dating, but going a bit broad, how do you think we could not fix this, because like it's such a wide range thing, but how do you think we could change this view in our own like communities, in our own churches, to change this idea of, oh, dating, you're just gonna go date somebody short term, keep moving on until eventually you find the one for marriage?
There's like a million reasons, honestly, but if I had to give you one major one that's just, I think, really important to remember, is we have to really encourage people who are struggling to like ask for help. If you're in, let's say it's just a friendship, not even a relationship, not even dating, and you and this friend are just not getting along. Like, you guys grew up together, and all of a sudden you guys are kind of just like drifting apart. What's important for us around you in the community to do is to support you to not drift apart. Like, you guys should fight to be friends if it's possible, right? But that doesn't really happen that much anymore. So like, if a couple comes and they're just like, they're kind of struggling to maintain their relationship, friends should check in on each other's with their relationships, with their couples, with their significant other. You should check in and see like, hey, you guys good? Like, anything you guys need, I'm at your service, right? That conversation never happens. Usually when it happens, it's just to Abuna, right? Abuna, we're struggling with this. Can you fix it? But like, you have a whole community of people who are way better than me at fixing that sort of stuff, right? So part of fixing it, I think, is just seeking help whenever things get tough and not giving up so easily. There's a million ideas to answer that question. Any other ideas that you guys have?
There's a Q&A section I want to like cover. We texted the youth initiative group chat.
Cool.
And they gave us a lot of different questions, which some of them we did ask, but there's a couple of different ones that I do want to bring up to y'all.
Sure.
Let's see. What are some things that y'all see in a partner that help y'all get closer to God? Or like, what things do you want to see in a partner?
A degree of kindness towards others.
I thought you were gonna say a degree.
No, I mean that too.
PhD.
Like, I need a sugar mommy, but still,
Master's degree.
it's I feel like it's very important to see a degree of kindness in another person, because that degree of kindness portrays God, and you want to chase that image of God, because that encourages you to also show that same degree of kindness.
I was gonna say it's like Abuna said earlier. The actions speak louder than words. So we should look for someone that helps a lot around the church and shows that they are close to God.
Devotion, yes.
Yeah.
Agree.
I also, but like, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You also should be careful of thinking that, okay, I don't ever see this person in church, therefore they are not good. That's like, there's always stories. There's a narrative behind every person that you see. So it could be somebody is dealing with a lot of family problems at home, and they're struggling to just get an hour of sleep at night. And so they like the one time that they are able to sleep is Saturday night, and they end up missing liturgy or they come late. And then when you are in the church, you see this person walking in late, and you're like judging them, right? So be very careful to make sure you like get to know people so that you're not just like judging from the outside kind of thing.
Okay. They wanted to know like y'all's opinions on age differences. Like
That's
big ones, small ones, and also like this is like a little non-traditional. Like if the girl is older than the guy.
Oh, that's I don't know.
I mean,
Just to I'll let
That's,
you
like,
talk, but I
very-
just want to like put it out there. My wife is a year and a half older than me, so like it's not. weird. I promise it's not weird, but we're gonna get into that. I'll let you say what you
I was
think.
gonna say I feel like it's very generational as well. Like
Yeah.
a lot of parents that we see at church have like a 10-year difference in marriage, 7, 8. But like nowadays, people will date like maximum 4 years difference, 5 maybe.
I don't see an issue with age difference to a certain degree. I think like if it's like more than like 10, 11 years age difference, I feel like there's a problem with that. Personally,
my parents are 11 years apart. And my parents are
10
doing
years
perfectly
apart.
fine. I feel like it gets to the point where like
I'm
it's,
happy for your parents, but I'm saying
it's
I
like
feel
it's
like if a person is 11 years older than me, or I'm 11 years older than a person, that's just too awkward.
so like you're saying like 25 and 45 wouldn't work out.
I mean, I think
if I'm
for,
the 45, no.
Difference.
Okay.
Or
I
even
feel
like
Or vice versa.
I don't.
Yeah, or
I
vice
mean, I
versa.
think for that big of an age difference, you do need to be much older.
Yeah.
Like, well, y'all
Yeah.
are together. Like when y'all start being together, y'all
Yeah.
gotta be much older.
Yeah, like even a difference of 5 years can make a huge difference depending on the age. So a 15-year-old and a 20-year-old
Oh my god.
are very different people. Personally,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
vast. A 20-year-old and a 25-year-old also are very different, right?
I mean, that's a little better than
That's
the
a little more-
15-year-old.
Yeah,
that- that one-
I'm
that one's
showing you the
like-
extreme to
nowadays.
like make the point. But like when you get to like 35 and 30, that's not a big difference, right?
Yeah.
It all comes about like maturity and growth and all those things. You have to play a factor
Yeah,
into it.
I agree with what Maurice said. Like, you would have to be older for like the bigger age differences.
Yeah.
But I'm talking like when you're younger, like in your young 20s, 30s. I feel like the age difference should be like, a little bit closer than 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Generally, the guy is older than the girl. Like I hope that's not the first time you've heard that. But it's not a rule of Christianity. It's not how it works. It really, it's just a decision that you have to make with the guidance of your confession father, guidance of your family, and you have to feel comfortable. It can't be an issue for you,
Yeah.
Okay. Gender roles, spiritually and culturally. I know this is a sensitive topic, but someone asked.
I love
so-
this topic.
Okay, go for it.
Wait, so what's the question? That's just a.
It's just like, they sent it and they were like, oh, like
Okay.
let's talk about gender roles, spiritually and culturally.
Like comparing them.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it, but let's talk about it in the context of dating.
Yeah.
Just keep it on topic.
Oh yeah.
So the different genders, you have male and female, right?
Mhm.
Those are the only two that exist. Sorry.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yep.
Cancel me if you want, okay? It's fine. But you have male and female.
Opinions, guys. This is just
Opinions.
opinions.
I'm speaking on behalf of what we believe in, okay? So I'm
Yeah.
just sorry. But
In this case, it's fact.
you have masculine and feminine, right? Why is that so sensitive? Okay? We're Christians talking to other Christians.
Yeah, like
Anyways, so you have masculine and you have feminine, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think like the masculine role is in dating?
Protection,
Okay.
leadership, just coming. I don't know.
yeah.
Sacrificing ourselves for them like Christ did for the church, like we already
Yeah.
discussed.
So sacrifice, protection, leadership, cool.
Providing,
Providing.
Yeah.
What about the feminine role?
taking care of the
Yeah,
whole.
like careness.
I mean,
and-
not like just
Taking care of the home.
teaching the kids.
I feel like a
you
big
know?
job is taking care of the kids.
So-
Yeah.
yeah.
So taking
Yeah.
care of the kids is actually not just for a feminine, like not for the,
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah.
female. Both like this is like you can look at just basic psychological studies of this. Both parents involved in parenting make the biggest difference. If it's just the mom, you'll have issues. If you have just the dad, you'll have issues. So both have to like team up to care and raise a child in the proper way. That's just scientifically, not even talking about spirituality. But more on the feminine side, which gets really misunderstood, is the idea of taking care of things. The role of the girl the role of the girl, the gender, is to be like a mother, and that does not mean you have to have kids. Like you can be in a relationship in a marriage where you don't have kids, and it's not a sin, but you can still be a mother, right? Have you guys ever heard of what a spiritual mother is?
I've heard the term, but I'm not.
You got an
Yeah,
idea?
I'm not
You
familiar.
guys ever visit the convent?
Yes.
So what do we call them?
No,
Besides nuns,
sisters.
we don't call them nuns.
Sisters,
Sisters
mother,
and
mother,
mothers,
yeah.
right? Omena.
Yeah.
That's our mother. What do we call priests and like the fathers? We say Abuna,
Abuna.
our father,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So why, like, what if Abuna Cherubim, for example, the priest that serves you guys, he is not married, right? But you still call him a father. So that means he's spiritually a father, right? You can do that in a marriage. You like the female can be a spiritual mother to the household and to the church that you guys are a part of, the community. And that would mean like what would a mother do is take care of her kids. She would like make sure they're okay, make sure they have these things that they forget all the time, make sure that they're like she's thinking 10 steps ahead. That was my mom did for me, by the way. But like all the things that I think of in a perfect mother, you don't need to be an actual mother to do that, right? You can do that just by being virtue of a female, and vice versa as well. The father, you don't need to have children to be a father. You can be fatherly over everything that's around you, right? What is a father supposed to do? What does a good father look like?
Someone who's
present.
leads by
Caring.
example.
Yeah.
Leads by example. So remember, we call priest father. You guys know what a priest is supposed to do? Like the definition of a priest.
To serve the church and the congregation.
Serve the church, serve the congregation, sure.
Help us find the right values in life.
Sure. Guide you towards the right values. So all those things combined, if I had to give you a definition of what a priest is, which is by definition what a father is, which is by definition what a husband is somebody who brings God to people and brings people to God. That's the basic, it's a very simple definition. And that's the role of the male. Role of the female is to be like the spiritual mother. What does the spiritual mother do for Christ?
Care
is
and
the-
nurture.
Care and nurture, right? And so take care of things and be ahead of things, like bring life into things when there's no life there. You ever notice that females are generally, most females in the world, are much more compassionate than males? Like they're way more loving than we
Yeah.
are. That's biological, right? Ever notice that men are a little bit more aggressive than females? Why is that? That's biological. And so our job as males is to use that masculine energy and direct it towards the goal that we were created to achieve, which is to be like fatherly towards the world. And then for mothers, the goal is to take that feminine energy and direct it towards the world. But you can do that while dating. You can do that in a relationship. Sorry for the long answer, but yeah.
You're good. Okay, so another question we got is that are breakups frowned upon? Not like the fact that like if it's not working out, it's just the fact like what do you do after and like what does the church see it as?
So there's no like official stance or whatever from the church, but just on a social level, you should be prepared for what happens after a breakup, especially if like people knew that you guys were in a relationship. It's immediately gossip, and that's okay. You have to be okay with it. Some of the advice that I give to people who go through a recent breakup, I'm just like, be normal. Like if you're hurt from a breakup, be hurt. Like you don't have to hide stuff like that. Obviously, don't like do your best to not cause a scene and be overbearing on other people. But like there are people in the church who want to help them through breakups, and so they should not feel like they have to put on a mask, and also they should not feel like they have to hide their feelings. Does that make sense?
What do you think about everyone knowing about the relationship? Because I feel like if
Sucks.
everyone knows, it does.
Sorry, it really is just not easy to deal with.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can't hide that. Like it's much more difficult to hide a relationship than it is to just keep it public or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, it all depends on the community. Like every church kind of has like a flavor, and some churches people will be dating each other and like no one's gossiping about it. And some other churches they'll be dating and then some people will be like, why aren't they engaged? How are they just dating? And then it becomes like gossip. And then when they break up and it becomes a thing. So you just have to like figure out what is your community like and then adjust according to what is best for everyone around you.
Going off that, do you think you ever need to like hide a relationship, or do you just like keep it natural? Because I know there are people that like have a relationship and they're like, oh, don't tell anybody, like keep it between just us and stuff. Or do you think like, it should just be its own thing and like whoever finds out, it's fine?
I think referring back to my previous answer, it still applies. It depends on what like community you're a part of, right? It depends on the church. So when I was in a relationship with my wife and before we were engaged, we kept it private. Like we didn't want anyone to know, just in case there's the off chance that like we were not compatible. Then you'd have like the whole church treating us like it was a funeral, and they were like, tub tubbing and all this stuff, like trying to make us feel better. And we don't want that unnecessary attention. I also was trying to consider, and so was she, her reputation and my reputation. Like if you enter into a relationship, it doesn't work out. You're not going to go into the microphone in church and be like, this is why we broke up. Like, it's not going to happen. So if you're not going to do that, then people will be left to just kind of speculate what happened. And people tend to assume the worst kind of thing. So people will be like, oh, they didn't work out because insert X, Y, and Z problems here. But those things are not usually true. So it's just the safer option to keep it private, but it doesn't mean it's impossible to be in a healthy relationship and a healthy breakup if it wasn't private.
I feel like ways of coping with that said so breakup is to just work on bettering yourself, like as a Christian and as a person, because the more that you work on yourself and you develop that character, the more you're willing to like not run into those same mistakes or those same issues that you ran into in the past. Because some people, say for example, they had broken up due to like an issue where like they would argue too much, or they would like always fight or always disagree with each other, always like competition of who said this or whatever. A big factor is just finding that peace, and the way you find that peace is by closer like gaining a better relationship with Christ. And that's something that is essential to, like, after a breakup, seek Christ and he will tell you what to do. Like you won't know what to do at the time, but he's got a plan for you. And no matter what happens, even if you fall or whatever, you'll be picked back up immediately. And
it's important that like whenever people go through breakups, that they are, like I say this to people all the time whenever they go through a separation or a breakup, that doesn't mean you failed. That doesn't mean the relationship failed. You can have a successful breakup. And that sounds like a different language to us today, I know, but it's possible. The way that you have a successful breakup is if you both come to like a realization that you're not compatible for each other. And it doesn't matter who broke up with you. That's so like middle school, sorry to say, but like it doesn't matter. What matters is why did you guys break up and what did you learn from it, right? And the only way you'll be able to look at that clearly, like to zoom out and see the relationship from an objective point of view, you have to do it in prayer. Like you can't do that by yourself. You have to bring God into it so you can be clear in your thinking and you're reflecting. But if you walk away from a relationship thinking, I learned what my weaknesses are, I learned what I'm looking for in a partner, that's a successful breakup, right? Yeah, there's the emotional pain and stuff, but pain doesn't mean you have to suffer. There's a big difference between those two things. You'll go through pain, but you don't have to suffer. You choose suffering usually, but we don't choose pain.
You should choose to learn from the pain. Yeah. Like referring back to climbing that ladder full of knives.
Right.
It's like as you're hurting, but you're also progressing and going up is how I see it.
And another thing that I want to bring up that you mentioned, which is what are you supposed to do while you're single? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but the analogy that I heard was, imagine you are going to go into the Olympics, right? And you're going to compete in the Olympics. You can't just like step one, enter into the Olympics and then be like, I deserve a gold medal. Yeah. I earned it. No, right? You have to go through some sort of training, right? That training time is dating and / engagement. That's when you're training yourself so that when you get married, that's the Olympics.
Yeah.
Right? The Olympics is not the or the marriage is not the gold medal at the end of the Olympics. The actual Olympics, the training, the competing for the gold prize, the gold medal, is the marriage. That's what you're doing when you're married, where you're with this partner for life, working, you're two imperfect people perfecting each other so that you can obtain the crown that's in heaven, right? That's the gold medal, is entering into a life with Christ. But yeah, you still have to go through that training period.
I'm sorry, I have a question back to the being secretive thing.
Sure.
Some people, like, since in our culture, and there's a generational difference between like parents and us for like when it comes to dating. I know some parents are not okay with like their kids dating, but we know that it's fine to date as long as you just like keep dating with Christ in the relationship, of course, and to like for marriage. I know some people will date behind their parents' back, and some people will just not date at all. What do you think they should do in that situation?
We should never do anything behind our parents' back, and it's not just because that's the rules. It's because remember the advice that I was given that I told you all, when you get married, you're marrying into the family and they are marrying into your family. So you kind of need your parents behind you, like to support you in this.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it in a way that's not getting their support, then you're on your own. And that's like going to battle on your own. Like you need your army with you. That's your parents. They're supposed to support you. And if you do it according to how you want it to be, you want to fight in the battle according to how you think you should fight. I mean, your parents have wisdom. You can trust them. They may be like sometimes really strict and overbearing, but that's okay. It doesn't mean you're going to be single for life just because they're kind of tough, you know? But never ever should we consider like, well, maybe if I just date in private and then I can make it work out. One day's going to come where if you want to get married to this person, you're going to have to bring that up to your parents. And God forbid this is the person that like you really fall in love with. And then your parents find out that you've been hiding it from them the whole time. What ends up happening after that?
It just leads to
Your
problems.
parents don't like them.
It's a huge problem. You're going to be feeling like
Yeah,
you're in a
it's
position
over.
where you have to choose between being like fixing the relationship with your parents and continuing a relationship with this person that you fell in love with. Again, you should never be in a position where you're choosing between the person you are in a relationship with and God or your parents or your friends, or that's never the case.
Yeah.
They should be joining into your life and you join into theirs.
I remember about a year or two ago, Abuna Sherabin was at my house and we discussed this topic with me, him, and my parents. It was like the whole dating topic. And I was asking him if it was okay. And my mom, as ignorant as she might seem, no offense, she is obviously like, no, he's too young. He doesn't know anything. This and this and that. But Abuna was like, as long as he has pure intentions into going into this relationship, he can do like as his heart pleases, because he has the main focus of God and like keeping God in between that relationship, and only has pure intentions going forward. Now, when you don't have those pure intentions, that's when you start falling, and that's when the relationship starts to fail.
Yeah.
And Abuna Angelos also said something to me like this about, say, like, for example, like disregarding a person's past who you're getting with. If you're disregarding that past, you can't judge that person. Well, like you're probably worse than them is in the situation. You can't judge that person like whatsoever. But what you can't do is you can't let it reoccur to you. You can't let that suck you in. You can't let those like evil intentions and like temptations bring you in and turn you away from the faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really all comes down to like we need to stop asking, is it right or is it wrong? Like I'm going to overemphasize this, and I know I do too much, but it's so important. We get stuck in this mentality of right versus wrong. Like, well, what is the right age? What is the right maturity? That's not that. It's is it good for you or not? And like Abuna Sherbim was teaching you, and Abuna Angelos, your intentions matter, right? If you have impure intentions, that could be, usually people who are younger have impure intentions. And so when your mom says like you're too young, it's not because you haven't reached the magic number age. It's because it's that age equates to having possibly impure intentions. But if you are at a younger age and you have pure intentions, that doesn't mean like, you know, that you can't date until you're at a certain age. No. It's
At
just
first-
a factor, you know.
At first, I like laughed at her and I was like, "Aha!" Like Abuna said, I could have a girlfriend, and there's nothing you could do about it. But,
what you learned
like,
from that?
Yeah, but like I was
Abuna
like,
said yes.
But like looking back at it, I was like, boy, was she right? Like
Right.
she like
Yeah.
it's a matter of like people who are out there who are experiencing this. They need to actually like you might think your parents have these old traditional ways
Yeah.
and traditional values, but in the end, you will realize it will hit you.
Right.
They were right at some point, and I guess it's a little cliche, but it is what it is.
There's a lot of youth though that I've met like in the church that are really, really mature. Like if they were in the right environment, meeting the right people, I would be okay with them starting a relationship. But just because they're mature and they're ready, that doesn't mean they should go out and date someone. Because what if that person that they're dating is not ready?
Yeah.
Right. So like this is a problem I think mostly in the Coptic church, and I'm biased because that's like most of my experience. But a lot of youth like in high school in the Coptic church are actually pretty mature, and more mature than people around them that are not Coptic Orthodox. And so you guys are in this tough situation where you're feeling like you're ready, but then everyone around you that you're interested in dating is not ready. But again, it's not about just you being ready. You have to consider those people that you're in a relationship with as well.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like the talk we were having about like the culture, because in high school, like you said, we may be ready because we've been talking about this. We've had like the Sunday school lessons on this and all that. But in the Western culture, it's, oh, we date to hook up and then we
Right.
break it off, and nobody's actually dating for marriage until like after college, even
Yeah.
sometimes. And I think that's where
I
a
mean,
lot of the
sometimes it
divide
isn't
is.
brought up. Like I mean, they like for me, like I've been talked to about dating like once, like before high school, and then after it's just thrown on you like after like over and over, and it's just like it's not talked about that much at all.
Because
Keep in mind though, if you talked about something too much and it wasn't an actual problem, right? Like if I came up to you and I'm just like, hey, you need to stop being selfish. Selfishness, here's a PowerPoint about how selfishness is a sin. And like I just keep giving you lessons about being selfish, but you're not struggling with selfishness. What ends up happening over time is you're going to start struggling with selfishness because I've just like thrown it at your face so much. And I think what ended up happening is the previous generation before you guys over talked about dating.
yeah,
Like that was majority of the Sunday school lessons that I received was about, it was the 4 Ds. Okay. It was dating, dancing, drugs, and drinking. The 4 Ds,
Never had
right?
a dance
Why
in
is
one.
dancing
Yeah,
one?
I
That was
Yeah.
the last dancing.
It's more like inappropriate dancing.
Oh, okay.
You know, but like going out to clubs and stuff.
That's
yeah.
such a like
But, like-
specific topic to bring up. Just like
Yeah, it's more of just like avoid like harmful environments. But anyways, because it was so drilled so much that I think your generation, the servants were just like, all right, we're not going to overload them with the 4 Ds. We're going to talk about other stuff. And then you guys end up actually needing one of those things to be talked about. So
yeah, because I feel like growing up, I didn't know anything about it, and I was like, I was lost.
that's why it just, you know, it's very important. You just ask questions. If it's a problem for you and you don't know the answer, you have a whole community of churches, not just one church, churches that are willing to help you out and find the answer. But the other questions that were on here, I think we should get to. What is the next one?
Okay. How can we know if the person we are dating is God, the one God sent?
So do you guys know the idea of a soulmate?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not a thing in Christianity. That's not a, we don't believe that God has only one person that I have to somehow find in this puzzle of a world. And if I wake up late one day and that person was on the way to the Starbucks that I was going to and I woke up late and I missed them, khalas, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting married. No, it's not that. It's that God doesn't treat us that way. You're the one that is sent to you by God. Like if it's very obvious that God is trying to get you to see this person, you can't, God is not going to stop, right? Like if it's, remember, marriage is for your salvation. So anything that has to do with our salvation, God's going to keep throwing the invitation at you. So if you miss this person, if you don't notice them because you're just like, you know, distracted or whatever, that person's going to keep showing up in your life. And God will allow those doors to continue opening. And you'll also feel like a sense of peace with the person that you know that you should be in a relationship with long term. It shouldn't be a just struggle constantly. You shouldn't be fighting 10 times a day. You shouldn't be trying to change the other person to match what you want. You shouldn't be just constantly trying to change yourself to match what they want. It would be very peaceful. You'll have arguments, you'll have disagreements, but it still will be peaceful. And that's one of the ways that you can tell this is from God. Another way that you can tell that the person is from God and sent to you is you'll ask advice from your father of confession. Like your father of confession should know you like the back of your hand because you've revealed yourself to the Father in confession. Your parents as well, they have to have an opinion on this. And that goes back to what we're saying before. So having all these people as like a team behind you, you'll be able to make the right decision and be able to discern truly, is this something that is peaceful and from God, or is this just like, I'm catching feelings for this person. It's just really strong feelings, you know?
Okay, this is kind of a longer one, and I want like everyone to give their input. If two people develop feelings for each other, should we commit if we think they are a good fit, or let it die down, breaking off the friendship because you feel the time is not right?
I'll let you guys jump in and
I
tell
think
me
that's
what
very
you think.
situational. I mean, if you're going, like you and another person have developed feelings, again, like are you both of faith, like going at the same track, have the same goals in mind, and like the compatibility that we talked about earlier? I think if that's the case, then yeah, you can keep going forward. But if there are those issues, the arguments, and all that, I think you just have to try and figure out how to move on.
I
Because I
think
feel like that covers very broadly.
Yeah, I think they're asking because they don't feel like they're ready.
I feel like this question is asking, I'm in a position where I really like this person. Should I fight for it or should I give up? Like, that's how I kind of understand this question. So like it says, if two people are developing feelings for each other, should we commit if we think they're a good fit, or let it die down, breaking off the friendship because you feel the time is up? So it's like, I think this person has the thought that the time might be not right, but then they also have this other thought that, well, this could be a good fit. What if it's just not the right time, but it's the right person? And so they're stuck between these two options. Should I continue and fight for it so that it becomes the right time later, or should I let it go, and then if, God willing, we end up seeing each other later on, we can try again? That's how I understand the question. Is that how you guys see it too?
Yeah,
I
pretty
saw
much.
it way more broadly, where it's just like me and this other person, we have feelings for each other, and they're just not sure if they want to date it with the intention of marriage. And so that's why I was saying, like, going back to like what we were talking about earlier, like it just kind of depends on where your priorities are and where you see yourself in life compared to the other person. And if it fits, then yeah, you can keep going with it. But if you do think like, oh, we're at just two different stages, it's just not going to work out, then you don't necessarily have to break up the friendship, but you just kind of have to do your own thing and move on.
Yeah. The only time I advise breaking off the friendship is if you guys have like a really close emotional connection with each other. Like I'm one of the old school thinking people who thinks like you can't be best friends with someone of the opposite sex. I've yet to see that be successful in like my experience and from the experience of the youth in the church. What ends up happening is you guys are close friends, you talk all day long, and then eventually that person catches feelings for you or for somebody else. And then it affects you. And if you were truly like just friends, it wouldn't have affected you. You'd be supportive of them, right? If they found feelings of another person is what I mean. But being best friends with the opposite sex is really dangerous because you guys are not the same person. You're opposite sex. You're different genders. You have different roles, different ways of viewing the world. You can have a lot of things in common, but being best friends with them is just really, really, really risky. The analogy that I once heard from a priest is, imagine you're going to a water park. We've all been to a water park before. You guys know what a water park is? So it's like, outdoor park with a bunch of slides and stuff. And there's certain slides that you have to be a certain height in order to go down. And the way you get onto the top of the slide is through a stairwell, right? At the top of the slide, with the ones for the higher height requirement, there's usually an employee to stop you if you're not tall enough. Well, imagine you're at a water park and you go climb the stairs and you sit at the edge of the pool, but you're not tall enough to ride this slide. You have to sit at the edge of the slide. You don't go down it. You just sit there and you like kick your feet, right? And then you decide, no, I'm not going down. And then you get back up and go down the stairs, and then you come back again the next day. Next day you go back up the stairs. You sit at the edge, and then you go back down. Okay, and you just do this every day. What eventually will happen?
You'll stop going.
You'll stop going.
Stop going
tall.
up.
Camera crew, what do you think?
I mean, if you can't,
They're like making hand motions to say the answer.
You get tall enough to go down the ride.
That would be nice in the ideal situation. But let's say you're really far away from being that like height to get there.
Mara is saying go down off screen.
Eventually, yeah, you're gonna end up going down the slide because you keep getting so close and sitting at the edge over and over and over again. That's what it's like to be best friends with someone of the opposite sex. That's what it's like to date when it's not the right time. That's what it's like to like when you're struggling to figure out, should I continue like giving them special attention or not? That's what ends up happening. You're putting yourself at risk, and it might not be there's other slides to slide on. Like you don't have to be on that one. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm gonna combine these two. One says, "What do you do if you can't find someone?" And then the one after says, "What happens if you get to an old age, like mid 30s or older, and you still can't find someone or get married?"
So this is a delicate one. So when somebody gets to a certain age, usually it's around the 30s, people start to be like, "Oh no, I am unable to be. I'm not lovable," and stuff like that. That's not the case, right? There are many people that get married at a later age, but when you get to that point, you have to remember that, like, you are to be continuing to work on yourself. There is no break from that, right? If God is going to send you the other person, you trust in his plan and not your own plan. If you want to be married by 26 and then you're like turning 26 tomorrow and you haven't even started dating a person, it's okay. That just means you have a different plan than what God has for you. And you should be willing to throw your plan out the window and just accept his. But never ever question your own identity, question like God's plan for you, question all these things just because you didn't get what you wanted according to your own schedule, your own plan. There are many people who get married at a later age. Maybe God is saying, if you get married now, it would actually be very bad for you. So it's being held off, right? of course, go get guidance from your father of confession, from your spiritual guide, from your community, and never ever feel like that you are, unlovable or on someone who's unable to be in a relationship with. But if that is the case, sometimes people are single prolonged because there are things they need to work on. Take that with like for food for thought. Maybe there are some things you have to actually work on, and this is your time to work on it. You can't be in a relationship and then work on being in a relationship, like to be ready for one. You have to actually prepare yourself. Like I said, the training for the Olympics. If you're not ready for the Olympics, you can't go enter into the Olympics.
What is some advice you have for people who struggle with like monogamy? They can't commit to just one person. They want all these different people at one time. What is some advice you would say on finding a better way or like a better use for your time?
That person, my first question I ask them is why? Like, what is it that's causing them to not want to be committing? It's usually there are different answers. It could be fear of failure. I'm afraid of like, if I commit to this person, then I fail them. I'm going to feel guilty and I don't want to feel guilty. So khalas, I'm never going to commit.
Yeah.
Some people, like there's different reasons, doesn't matter, but they have to ask themselves why. Why do they feel this, that they cannot commit? Why do you feel like you can accept the fact that God has committed himself to you, but you're not willing to commit to someone else? Because like that's kind of the whole point. The way that God relates to us should be how we relate to other people, especially a person that you are in an intimate relationship with, right?
And going off that, moving back when you were talking about like God is if he doesn't intend for you to get married at a certain age, like you won't. What happens if you do get into a marriage? Because I kind of want to go off into a different topic here.
What if you like bypass God's will?
Well, not even bypass. Like, let's say you do get married and you think like this person is the one. You get married and down the road, like it doesn't work out. Like the question about divorce and your thoughts on it to make it just very
Sure.
blunt.
So God works with our weakness. He doesn't just like have this perfect plan that's laid out, and then if I don't join in that plan, then my whole life is just terrible the rest of my life. God has many times adjusted. I'll give you one very simple example from the Old Testament. You guys know David the prophet.
Yeah.
What is like the major sin that David committed?
Was it not adultery?
Yeah, it's adultery with Bathsheba, and then it eventually led to another sin of murder, right? So those two things. He did eventually repent for it and so on. But one of the things that no one really like notices about David is he had multiple wives, right? And he was not supposed to have multiple wives.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He knew the law. He was aware. He was a part of Israel, right? He had multiple wives though, and yet one of the names that Jesus Christ is referred to is the son of David. So David, who has weaknesses that he did repent from, and weaknesses that he did not repent from. God still used his family line and was born from his family line. Like he didn't give up on him because he was not living perfectly. Like the point is to say that God works with our weakness. God's will get done no matter what I do. I'm not going to be able to change God's will, right? So if God has ordained a certain path for me with a certain person at a certain time, and I go into a different path, God will bless that path and try to make it work. But if it's actually going to lead to my destruction, he will do his best to bring me back to the other path. Does that make sense? So just keep that in mind that we're going to make mistakes and it's okay. But when it comes to divorce, the way that the church sees divorce, and this is obviously based off of scripture, the only time divorce is allowed is when, does anyone know the answer?
I was going to ask
Adultery
that.
is committed?
When adultery is committed.
Okay.
Right?
Is it when like it's like abusive?
Yeah, so abuse also falls into the concept of adultery. So first, just so you know, like the structure of the church, there is a whole committee of bishops that exist who are in charge of divorce cases in each country where the Coptic church exists. And then within that team of bishops, they ask specific priests in each diocese to help get involved so they can all team up together as one church and solve this couple's issues. And they don't just say, oh, you cheated on each other, so okay, immediately here's a divorce. You try to work on it, right? We always seek after repentance and reconciliation and forgiveness first. And if that doesn't happen, then that's a sign of somebody who's committed adultery, right? Remember, adultery is not just you sexually cheated on someone. Adultery is when you have chosen to make something or someone else more important than your spouse, right? So like I can cheat on my wife with my job. That's terrible if I did that, right? You can cheat on your husband by putting your friends over your husband. I'm not saying like go and get divorced for all these little tiny things, but I'm saying if you keep carrying towards that with those actions, then what's the difference? There's no difference between that adultery and then actually sexually cheating on them, right? So the church is, especially Christ on the gospel in the Sermon on the Mount, he said, if you so much as lusted after a person, then you've committed adultery. If you just looked at them in a sexual way, in a lustful way, then you've committed adultery, right? So it's not just, did you sexually cheat on a person? If there's an abusive relationship, then the church sees the abuse of either whoever is being abused or whoever is the abuser, whoever the abuser is, that person has chosen their anger and their desire to control and whatever else their reasons why they're abusing as more important than the person that they're married to. So that's adultery. Does that kind of make sense? So keep that in mind. It's not just like about sexuality. It's not the whole point. It's about commitment, loyalty, because the reflection of God's relationship to the church should also be the reflection that we have to our spouses, that we should have in a relationship, in a marriage. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, as we're like getting to the end of the episode, I thought we'd play a little game called Red Flag, Green Flag. I'm gonna go through some things that you could find in a partner, and we're gonna go down and say whether it's a green flag or a red flag, and then we're gonna discuss. Okay, so the first one is there's a big age difference. I know we brought this up, so let's go down. Let's start with Andrew.
I mean, it's like I said, it depends on the age difference itself and like where the younger age starts. But I feel like if it's like single digits and like they're both feel ready and like it's compatible, I feel like it should be fine. But like if the age difference is too big, I personally would say it's a red flag.
Okay, 10 plus years. 10 plus years is
For
a
me,
red
that's
flag?
a red flag.
Okay, Yusuf?
10 plus years. This is a very like, you guys might dislike this, but low key a green flag. Because listen, let me explain.
Exclusively, I need her to be 10 years younger than me, or else
No,
I'm
no,
not gonna date her.
listen. Like if someone's like,
No way.
say, come on, Abuna, come on, listen. Listen.
You didn't say it's okay. You said green flag.
Green flag.
Like I feel like there's a level of maturity that like older people have that could use that to guide those younger people that, for example, that they have a relationship
What
with.
if you're the older person?
I mean-
not right now.
I mean,
not right now.
then I'm more qualified to lead that younger person. But I'm not saying, oh, go like when you're like a 20-year-old, don't go for like 15-year-olds or anything like that. I'm saying, say like if you're getting married at like 32 and the other person's like 23 or 22 or in like early 20s,
Okay, Abuna.
Yeah. I think just from my experience, this should be default a red flag until it's not a red flag anymore. So like you just take it as a red flag and then you go get to know the person and be like, oh, okay, this isn't a red flag, and then it becomes a green flag, which is kind of what Andrew's answer is. But I just like think it's safe. Better play it safe than sorry.
I agree with Abuna. I think it's a red flag. And also, like, sometimes, I know this is not, like, always the case, but sometimes, like, they've gone, like, the older person has already gone through that part in their life. Yeah. So it's more of, like, a guidance relationship, not a growing together relationship. I don't know.
I mean,
That's, like, how I see it.
Yeah, I
I get that.
personally agree. Green flag. I feel like it's green flag as long as it's single digits, because after that, I feel like it's just guidance, like she said. But red flag if it's in double digits, personally.
No, if just to play devil's advocate, if it is over 10 years, there is no like just guidance relationship. If it's just a guidance relationship, that guy, the husband, needs to humble himself and realize he can learn from any age.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's no, just because you're older doesn't mean you're wiser. Like Christ can speak to you through your wife, even though she's 12 years younger than you. So you just have to have that like learning spirit. Like you may be a teacher most of your life with that marriage, but there are gonna be times where you have to be the student and she's gonna be the one teaching you. So
Yeah. Okay, next one. They are a different religion or denomination, but they support your religion fully.
I think if they're going in it with the intention of like becoming Coptic Orthodox and doing it for Christ through the like lessons and all the stuff that they learn, I think that's a green flag. But if, like we discussed earlier, they're just doing it, oh, I'm gonna get baptized, then I can marry him, then do whatever, I don't care, I feel like then that's a red flag, and it just kind of depends on the person's intentions.
I also agree with what Andrew said. It's more about like how the person sees it as themselves are the people that like they see it as they're being saved, not just that, not they're interested because their partner is in that religion. And a lot of like people in never mind, that's the point for a different episode.
Okay.
You got a lot of content.
Yeah.
I see this as 100% a red flag, because if you are not, like, if I believe in Christ and I believe in the fullness of Christ as delivered to us through the Coptic Orthodox Church, and you just think like, oh no, that's like that thing you do on Sundays, but I, as your wife, I'm gonna do my own thing on Sundays, but we can just come back together and be husband and wife. To me, that's like choosing to say no to my faith. And if you say no to my faith, that's you saying no to me. Like my identity is a Christian. So if you don't agree with how I, as a Christian, look at Christian marriage, then you're saying no to me. That's very much basically saying like you don't agree with me, and like how can we be married then, right? But maybe that's my extreme way of thinking. But that's how I see it.
I think it depends. I feel like if they're willing to like open up to that religion and then after like convert, then it's a green flag, especially if they like support it fully. But if they're just like, oh, you do my thing, I do my thing, then, yeah, red flag.
I feel like I agree with Abuna right there, because supporting it and supporting your religion and going into your religion is a very different thing. They have to go into our religion, you know?
If they truly know the religion, they wouldn't be looking at it as just something to support. Like it's like I like sports and she supports the team that I support just because I'm liking that team. If she truly knew the religion, and she should, because I'm the one who's a representative of that religion, then she wouldn't want to just support me. She would want to be a part of it. It means like I failed to give her the religion. I failed to show her Christ. If she doesn't
It's
want
like
it.
you can't just like Ronaldo because I like Ronaldo. You have to like,
Yeah.
you have to like actually like enjoy watching him and like truly
Perfect
believe,
analogy.
Sure.
truly believe he is the best player on the face of the earth.
No, he's not.
Okay.
Let's move on to the topic.
That's another podcast topic.
Next topic: Ronaldo versus Messi.
Okay. This one's like a hard topic. Okay. They haven't saved themselves for marriage.
Just so we're clear, in case anyone in the audience is like, what does that mean? They have had premarital sexual relations.
Yeah.
Is that how, are we understanding it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how I understand it. So yeah, go ahead.
That's a bit of a tough question for me, because I feel like it would depend on the situation and how it's presented, like when you and your partner to like talk about it. I don't know. I feel like if they're just like kind of, and I don't mean to be like rude, if they're just kind of going around and they're just like going and doing it with everybody, and then they just kind of settle on you, I feel like that's a bit of a red flag. But I feel like it's very situational, so I don't know how I would answer this right now.
Okay.
All right. This is definitely like not a green flag. I'm sorry. Like there's no way you could justify this being a green flag. It could be like, it's a definite red flag, but you could make it a yellow. Let me explain how.
Let's
I
add
would-
yellow.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
So let me explain how. So if they're having those sexual like relations before marriage and such, and the thing is, you as a Christian, you cannot judge that person. Like no matter like of their past, whatever, this and that, you cannot go around and just judge them based on that. You could have a preference, yes, but you can't really judge that person. You don't know what they're like now. But a lot of people see that as an issue, but it's an issue that you can overcome if you're really willing to put the effort and you know that this person has better intentions in the future. But like I said previously on the podcast, you shouldn't let those intentions pull you in, because when you start seeing flickers of those like intentions coming back to them, and you see like kind of like their old self like returning, immediately red flag. You shouldn't jeopardize your spiritual life for anything. I'm sorry. That's
I
how
think
see
you worded that a lot better than what I was trying to say, and I do like would agree with that. I think I was just trying to. I was stuck on like the binary red green flag, but I do agree with that.
I always think to myself that like the person in front of me, everything that they've done in their past, that may not be who they are right now. And so if you're thinking of marrying that person right now, then it's the person I'm marrying right now, not who they were in their past. So a lot of I've met a lot of people who like they come to confession because they've fallen into like sexual lust and they're not married, so they've had premarital sexual relations, and they feel so terrible. They hate it. They hate themselves. They're so repentant of it, and they want is to feel forgiven for their sin, right? They don't want to be labeled as somebody who is unworthy of being in a healthy Christian relationship because they've had struggles with lust in their past. And so I think that giving them a chance is what they deserve, because maybe God could use you to be a source of forgiveness for that person. Like they could feel that my repentance was accepted by God because this person who didn't make the same mistakes as me is willing to be in a relationship with me. So I think we should always be considering not to judge them, like you're saying, by what they did in their past, but look at who they are just today.
Yeah.
And so for that, I say yellow flag, I guess, if
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one of the options.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't
Um,
given a yellow flag.
But
I'll give you one now.
if it's a problem still to this day, then yeah, it's a red flag. It all just depends on who is the person in front of me right now. That's all.
I agree with Abuna. I feel like it's a yellow flag because it depends on the person. If they like Andrew said, are just going around, then yeah, that's a red flag, and they just sit on you. But if they like truly like confessed and repented, and they like feel sorry for it, and they want to like move forward with the relationship in Christ, and they like want to have a true relationship with you, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I would say for sure yellow flag, because it also depends on their upbringing. Like if they weren't Coptic Orthodox before I met them and then I introduced them to my religion and like my beliefs, like as long as she repented after I introduced her, and that honestly I don't care what happened before I introduced her to my religion. What matters is the new person that she is today.
Okay, I'm gonna start on this side this time. They say they're a Christian but act differently in front of different groups.
That has to be a red flag, because I feel
Red.
like Abuna said, because
I
like
should have
Abuna
brought the
said,
flags next
Straight
time.
up, actually.
People are not watching the video can't believe.
Yeah, people closer to the mic.
Because like Abuna said, actions speak a lot louder than our words. So if I go to my friend and I preach to them that, oh, at the youth meeting we talked about how smoking hookah and like drinking alcohol, going to club and all that is bad, but then I tell them that it's okay that we go out there, but I won't like do those things with them. I mean, I'm not supporting them in any way, which is not good, because I should be leading them towards our belief and not further from it, you know? So I for sure think that's a red flag.
I agree. I think it's a red flag. I think you should be a Christian no matter where you're at, and I think people should be able to see Christ through you no matter what situation you're in.
I think some people who are in this situation, they haven't been called out about it. And so I always tell people, like, and this is what I would do, that they need to, I'm going to call them out first. So if they're not acting Christian, but they're over here calling themselves Christian, I'm going to call them out on it. And how they respond to me calling them out on it will determine whether it's a red flag or a green flag. If they try to justify it, if they try to defend themselves, if they try to be like, no, I just went to the hookah bar and I didn't actually smoke. And it's like, okay, well then who are you trying to represent? You know, are you Christ or are you whoever you want to be, you know? But that's how I think I can make that decision, whether it's a green flag or a red flag. If it's a person who's been called out and they respond well to the being called out, and they're just like, yeah, you're right, Abuna, I definitely shouldn't be doing that. And then they change. That's a green flag. But if they respond badly and they're just like, nah, Abuna, you don't know, it's not a problem, then that's a red flag.
Yusuf?
I believe that
Your actions speak louder than words, and you can't just say you're a Christian and portray those things. But I feel like a sense everybody falls into that sort of category. Everybody falls into unchristian like behavior that happens. Like it could be as simple as like looking at someone and like judging them for their outfit or judging them for coming to church like a few minutes late. So it shouldn't only just be like certain things where you like pick and choose. This is worse than this. It's all like sin, and we're at this age where we're at constant growth and learning new things. And like, yes, we're gonna mess up. Yes, we're gonna do this. But at the end of the day, we can still call ourselves Christians because we're willing. Like, if you have that willingness inside you to change and to be better and to be a Christ-like figure.
Yeah.
I think for this question, it reminds me a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, the retreat topic of your own identity, not having a like fake ID or a fake mask. And I do think that immediately, like when you look at it, it is a red flag. Like a person who in church is like, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm do this, I serve, I do, and then they go out and they put on like this fake mask, this fake ID, and they're like going out, drinking, partying, doing like whatever it is they want, and they act differently. I feel like that is a huge red flag. But if when they're called out, like Abuna said, they reflect on it, they change, they take off like the fake mask, and they just have the one ID both in church and out of church, I do think that does turn it into a green flag because they are showing that they're trying to change and be better. But yeah, instantly it's just a red flag.
Yeah. Okay. They're very strong in their relationship with Christ, but they don't help you grow with yours.
Am I still first?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That I mean, it's a yellow flag, but I would say red flag because, like Abuna said, we should help each other grow. I feel like them not helping me grow is like them giving up on me, and that's not what I would want in a relationship. I would want someone to fight for me and help me become like the best version of myself that I can be.
I want to play devil's advocate for this one. What if, okay, you know how they say like you need to be strong in your relationship with Christ first before you go into marriage? They're strong in their relationship, and you should be too.
Oh, so you're
Like-
saying like they don't feel ready to be giving out the advice? Or, like,
No,
to
no,
help
no,
each
no. I'm
other?
saying like, you know how they're like, oh, you need, before you start dating, or like, not how.
She's saying they
yeah.
shouldn't be married at
Yeah.
this place.
How we
Yeah,
said
like-
find yourself first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be strong in your relationship with Christ first. But so in that relationship, both sides should be strong in their relationship with Christ. Why would you need help?
Yeah.
You know?
I agree with that.
No, like that's my, like, do y'all agree with
Yeah,
that?
to some extent, I agree with that.
So are you saying it's a green flag or
My
red
turn?
flag?
Yeah. I don't know.
Green-
No, I'm just saying
green
I was
flag
playing
can-
devil's
I think
advocate.
it's
I don't agree with that, what I just said. Like,
I think you're saying it's a green flag then. Like it's okay to be in a relationship then. if
No,
that's the
I'm
case.
saying-
like,
no,
that shouldn't
I
stop
think-
you.
I think
Right.
they should help you grow, but I just wanted to like bring that side
Mm.
because I think they just should help you grow, but they shouldn't be your only like reason you're growing.
Is that your answer?
Yeah, I think it's a red flag.
Okay. I think this is a green flag because that, to me, I see the situation as it's my job to help them learn how to help others grow in Christ. You guys follow that?
Yeah.
I see it as like I should not depend my relationship with Christ on whether I'm getting help or not. Christ has given me, you've received the Holy Spirit of God. That's the fullness of God. Once you're baptized in the church, you have everything you need to be close to God. You can't do it by yourself. You do need your community with you, but I can't rely on my wife to be for me to be close to Christ. If she's struggling in her relationship with Christ, that means I have to be even more strong in my relationship with Christ so that I can help her get up and be close with Christ. If she's not helping me, that's because maybe that's my time to help her. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I see this as 100% a green flag. 'Cause this is a chance for me to serve rather than be served.
Okay.
Like Abuna said, I agree with what he said.
I'm not
like,
always right. You don't have to disagree
Yeah.
with me.
But no, like that's the my point of view I had on it. Like finding yourself first before like you try to help others, and like you said, like that's already been provided for you, like tools and materials to find yourself, so you don't depend on others for. Because are you becoming closer to Christ for that person, or are you becoming closer to Christ for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Yusuf's take in that it kind of depends on your intention with how you're trying to grow. If you're like looking at the other person and saying, why aren't they helping me? I feel like you have the wrong intention in your relationship. And I feel like that would make it a red flag. But I feel like if you're reflecting and you're thinking like, oh, why aren't they helping me? Maybe this is something I need to work on myself, or maybe they themselves do need help and that's why they don't feel like they can help me. I feel like that could be seen as a green flag. I feel like it does depend on your own intention and how you're viewing the relationship and how you're trying to grow with God.
I mean, the way that I saw it in this situation is like I'm being very ignorant, and I don't even see what I don't even see what I'm doing wrong, but like my wife sees it, but she decides not to help me. That's the way I was seeing it.
I feel like if you see it that way, then yeah, I would say it could be a red flag, but I feel like this point doesn't show like the person's intention, and that's what shows like there could be variance.
In that situation that you just mentioned, I don't think that I need to wait for her to call me out in order for me to work on it. If she never calls me out on it, God will call me out himself in other ways, through other people, through your father confession, through the community, through your parents, whatever. So I don't need to wait till she tells me that I need to work on something for me to work on it. I should just be already reflecting on my own and already being like, in repentance and being hypersensitive to if I am sinning, so that I don't have to wait till someone calls me out. I can just start calling myself out. And if she knows that I'm doing something wrong and doesn't call me out because she's just like doesn't want to, she doesn't want to offend me, whatever, that's her. Like that's her issue. That's not mine. And she can work on that. I can help her work on that. But ultimately, I'm the one sinning. I'm the one that needs to repent. So I should be responsible for that. I can't put that on anybody else. I'm not going to get into heaven because somebody snuck me in while they were on the way in. I need to be with God in heaven. I need to be the one to seek after him and repent myself, not on anyone else relying on them.
Okay. They have had many past relationships starting over here.
I don't see that as a red flag. Like, I feel like it doesn't matter really if they've had many past relationships. I think what matters is what has happened in the relationship. Like, why was the relationship broken off? Is this person like abusive, very toxic? I think it depends on the circumstances of the past relationships, not like the number of past relationships. If they've just had multiple past relationships, like nothing has happened, like they've just been dating and they just saw it didn't work out, like similar to like how Abuna mentioned, like a positive breakup. I don't see any issue with that really. Like they just realized, oh, this isn't time for me, or this isn't working out. I don't see any issues, and it could be a green flag.
I see it as a red flag because why are you going around starting your subscription for a certain amount of time, then canceling it after, say, like a few months? Like, I'm sorry, you just can't have more experience. Like, when you have more experience, you're likely to have more like intentions and different ideologies that come with those people that you've had in the past. And those, I guarantee you 100% those ideologies are different than mine. Beliefs are different than mine. All that is different than me. It's like, it's not something that like you're used to. You're not used to someone like me. So it's just a red flag for me.
Do you think that's up to a certain point? Like if they've had like a couple, or do you like just want them like first one?
It's not like first one. It's more like of how many flavors have, like, this sounds wrong to say, how many flavors have you tried before you could find the right Starbucks drink kind of thing? Like, it's like, and I want to be that worthy Starbucks drink, and like, and obviously be your first and teach you this and that. But if you're like, say your taste buds have adjusted to all those other flavors that you're not used to, this flavor that you're getting from me, then what's the point?
I feel like you also have to consider like how long the relationship was and what happened in the relationship, because I feel like you're taking it like every relationship they've had before, like they went all the way to the point of just until marriage and then broke it off, and they've had like multiple. I feel like that's not the case most of the time. I feel like you're looking at it very one-dimensionally, but
Yeah. But it's more I feel like it's just like, I know like people in the past, because in the Western world, most likely you will try to, like, as Coptics, you will try to date outside of your religion. Like, am I wrong? Because like people like in our religion, like it's hard finding compatibility. So like dating outside, it seems like as a better option for some people, or that's how some people see it. And dating those people, they have different experiences. They have different ideas of what they think that you should be. They don't see that Christian like behavior often. So it's just a red flag because they're not used to that. I'm not saying that you can't get them used to that. I'm just saying if they've done it so much to the extent where they can't recognize your like true difference between, and how like your difference is that you're a Christ-like person, then yeah.
I think this kind of goes back to they haven't saved themselves for marriage. Like they've had premarital sexual relations, where like there's usually reasons why people are just kind of hopping between relationships. And from my experience with people, most of the time is actually what you're saying, but everyone still deserves a chance, I think. And so for me, I would number one ask the same question I always ask, which is why. Like, what's going on? Is this person not comfortable being alone? Is that why they're just like, girlfriend boyfriend hopping? Is it because they don't know how to be by themselves or not content by themselves, so they need someone like in that way? That's not healthy. That would if I get into a relationship with that person, I'm just fueling that problem that they have, which is they can't be by themselves, right? So, in my opinion, I think it's important to figure out like what's going on behind it, but at least give them the chance to be able to, if they're trying to learn from their past, maybe they can learn from their past through you, and then you can guide them in the right direction to have a healthy Christian relationship. But that's just my default. You give everyone a chance and see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it's a red flag. I think if they're just like going around like a lot and they've had so many relationships to the point where like whenever they're trying to like at that point you're like dating for fun, and whenever they're trying to like settle down, it's just I don't know, I think it would be harder for them.
I feel like it's a yellow flag because it could be a green flag or a red flag depending on like the situation, like you said. Because like, what if like I feel like a green flag is like if she got into relationships for marriage but then realized that they weren't the right one, and then let's just say she got out of the relationship with a good thing, like maybe she like used to smoke and stuff, but then that relationship taught her to not smoke, but it didn't end well. So depending on the relationships and why they end and what comes out of the relationship, it could be a green or a red flag.
I agree, but I'm saying like for that one, like that's like it's like a lot of relationships, like not like 1, 2, or 3. It's like 10 or like 15 or something like that.
I mean, yeah, not all of them would be good, but not all of them would be bad either.
At that point, you also have to consider like at what stage in your life are you in, if for them to have had like 10
Yeah, if you're
plus
like a
relationships,
teenager, like
yeah, then that is
Yeah.
insane. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
That's also what you have to like consider. Like if you're in your like 30s or something and they've had
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
10 plus,
I mean-
okay, that's
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
that's more reasonable.
At that
But yeah,
point,
if you're like 18 and they've had like
yeah,
10, 20
18
relationships,
relationships.
yeah.
At that point, they're probably counting like their like elementary school crushes and like middle school relationships at that point.
I think it's not about a number. It's it's not about a number at that point, in my opinion. I think it's about the quality of like how they learn from it, and that'll come out when you get to know them. You just like spend some time with them. They'll tell you how they grew in wisdom and experience, and they grew closer to Christ by ending those relationships or by being out of them. Which that to me is a sign of maturity, and that's a green flag. So
Okay, they have an "I did this for you" mindset. Like I quit smoking for you, I quit cigarettes for you, I quit alcohol for you, I went to church for you.
Okay, I can start this one. That's a red flag. I mean, if they're doing it just for you, I feel like if for some reason like that relationship ends and they move on, they're gonna I'm gonna go back to smoking.
Do you think it could start for someone and then end up being like
What do you mean?
say
Like
they
someone could lead to it starting.
like they're like, "Oh, I want you to quit smoking." They start for them, but then like they find themselves like wanting to quit. Or they like go to church for someone and they find themselves like wanting to go to church.
I feel like that is possible, but that's not the question.
yeah, they wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't say I
If
did
they're
this
saying
for
if
you.
they're saying I did like
Yeah.
I'm going like
They'll say I did this through you.
yeah, like if
Right.
let's say
Mhm.
like they're saying like something happens, you get in an argument, they're like, yeah, I've been going to church for you. I feel like that's a red flag, like because
Yeah.
they're not themselves trying to grow and change through Christ, and I feel like that in it of itself is a red flag.
Yeah, I feel like that's a red flag. I'm not taking credit for actions that God has brought upon you to fix you as a person. Like you cannot give me any sort of credit for that. That's just a major red flag to be like you're doing this for a certain person because at the finish line when you're about to get married, say they're from different religion, they're not getting baptized for Christ. They're not getting baptized because they're saved. They're getting baptized for you.
I'm gonna I'm trying my best to put myself in the shoes of somebody who would love to hear this, and I think it's because this sounds like it's flattering and it's like a way of showing love to someone. Like, oh my goodness, you did all of that for me. It's like you were so selfless. You didn't have to do that for me, and that can be really enticing, and like we can feel like, whoa, this person loves me, but at the end of the day, that's not the goal of marriage. That's not the goal of dating. Like you should always redirect them back to God. If they're doing it for you, be like, I'm just God's tool. If you saw my life, you saw Christ through me, go thank God, not me. You didn't have to do that for me. I support you. I'm happy you're getting better. But from now on, be there for God. Do these things for God. He's the one that's actually helping you. I'm just like his tool that he's using.
Yeah, I agree. Red flag. I don't think they should
Real.
Have that.
Yes. Very, very, very red flag.
Okay.
Run away.
And then
Okay.
it died. It died.
Did it actually? Okay, hold up.
Yeah.
Well, I don't need it for the last one. The last one is okay. We put this in as a joke. The last one is they like matcha.
Red flag. Red
Run away.
flag. Like,
Really? I get it.
Good
I
Matcha.
just very
I,
red
I,
flag.
know, I know exactly who asked this question, and it is a red flag for that person.
It was it.
Some of the camera crew. Some of them. It's
The
not just
one
one, bro.
behind the camera. Yeah.
Nah, it was some.
So we all agree it's a red
In
flag.
general,
What is
really.
matcha?
It's like grains.
grass.
So you're like a cow.
It
drinking
literally
it.
tastes like.
It's
It literally tastes.
Bro, I'm
It's
sorry.
literally like a cow eating grass. It's the same exact
Yeah, it
concept.
literally tastes like grass.
Respect.
No, it's pretty good. You put some sugar in it, it's not bad. But
At that
it's
point, you're changing the matcha.
yeah.
I mean, if you're vegan, have fun with that.
Is it even healthy? Like, what's the point of it?
I don't know.
It probably
I feel like
is.
just because
It's-
it sounds
it
like
probably is.
exotic, it makes it someone people might. Think
I don't-
it's
I mean, it
healthy.
tastes
I've
like
tried-
grass.
I've tried
It's
it
got to be
both
healthy. At
times.
that point, like
It tastes like
if it tastes like grass and it's unhealthy at that
Every
point.
single
like,
person.
If you're adding all that sugar to it,
Sorry,
it can't
Nero.
be healthy. There's no way.
That likes matcha is like you have to try it. You've had the wrong matcha before, and I've tried it like 3-4 times. It's all bad.
I don't like it either, guys.
Huge red flag.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's horrible.
Good.
Okay. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you, Peter, Abuna Musa, Yusuf, and Andrew for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
We're on
Thank
all
you.
social media. We're on TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram.
We
are
are
CTV.
CTV. Have a blessed day together.
Yeah, yeah,